Hello and welcome to the preparation video for UGC NET English on our channel. In this video, we will be discussing the first topic of British literature, Old and Middle English, 500 AD to 1300 AD. We'll start by discussing the Anglo-Saxon period, its historical background, style, themes. The Anglo-Saxon period is a period in English history that lasted from the 5th to the 11th centuries. It is named after the Anglo-Saxons, a Germanic people who migrated to Britain from what is now northwestern Germany and Denmark. The Anglo-Saxon period began with the collapse of Roman rule in Britain in the 5th century. The Romans had ruled Britain for over 300 years, and their departure left a power vacuum that was filled by the Anglo-Saxons. The Anglo-Saxons gradually conquered most of Britain, and by the 7th century they had established a number of kingdoms, including Northumbria, Mercia, and Wessex. The Anglo-Saxon period was a time of great change and upheaval. The Anglo-Saxons brought their own language, culture, and religion to Britain, and they gradually displaced the Celtic people who had previously inhabited the island. The Anglo-Saxons also faced a number of challenges, including Viking invasions and internal conflict. Despite these challenges, the Anglo-Saxons made significant contributions to British culture. They developed a unique system of law and government, and they created a rich body of literature, poetry, and art, and its legacy continues to shape the culture of England today. Do you know that Old English, the language spoken during the Anglo-Saxon period, is very different from modern English? In fact, if you read an Old English text, you might not be able to understand a single word. However, some Old English words still survive in modern English, such as love, father, mother, day, night, water, and house. Moving towards the historic background. The Anglo-Saxon period began in the 5th century, after the Romans withdrew from Britain. The Romans had ruled Britain for over 300 years, and their departure left a power vacuum that was filled by Germanic tribes from northern Europe. The Germanic tribes who settled in Britain became known as the Anglo-Saxons. The Anglo-Saxons were a diverse group of people, but they shared a common language, culture, and religion. They spoke a Germanic language that is now known as Old English. They were pagans, and they worshipped a number of gods and goddesses. The Anglo-Saxons divided Britain into a number of small kingdoms. These kingdoms were constantly at war with each other, and they were also vulnerable to attack from the Vikings. In the 9th century, the Vikings conquered much of Britain, and they established a number of Danish kingdoms. In the 10th century, the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were reunited under the leadership of King Alfred the Great. Alfred was a brilliant military leader and a wise administrator. He reformed the legal system, promoted education, and encouraged the development of literature and art. Alfred's son, Edward the Elder, continued his father's work. Edward conquered the remaining Danish kingdoms, and he united England under a single rule. Edward's reign marked the end of the Anglo-Saxon period, and the beginning of the Norman period. Do you know, the legacy of the Anglo-Saxon period can also be seen in the names of many places in England, such as Oxford, meaning, Ford of the Oxen, and Winchester, meaning, Fort of the Romans. Taking about themes. The Anglo-Saxon period was a time of great change and upheaval. The Anglo-Saxons brought their own language, culture, and religion to Britain and gradually displaced the Celtic people who had previously inhabited the island. Some of the major themes of the Anglo-Saxon period include: first is the arrival of the Anglo-Saxons and their impact on British culture. The Anglo-Saxons were a group of Germanic peoples who migrated to Britain from what is now northwestern Germany and southern Denmark in the 5th century. They brought with them their own language, culture, and religion, which had a profound impact on British culture. One of the most significant impacts of the Anglo-Saxons was their language. The Anglo-Saxons spoke a language called Old English, which is the ancestor of modern English. Old English was a very different language from the Latin that had been spoken in Britain during the Roman period. It was a Germanic language, and it had a much simpler grammar and vocabulary. The arrival of the Anglo-Saxons led to the gradual replacement of Latin with Old English, and Old English eventually became the dominant language in Britain. The Anglo-Saxons also had a significant impact on British culture in terms of their religion. The Anglo-Saxons were pagans, and they worshipped a number of gods and goddesses. However, they were eventually converted to Christianity by missionaries from Rome. Christianity had a profound impact on British culture, and it remains the dominant religion in Britain today. In addition to their language and religion, the Anglo-Saxons also had a significant impact on British culture in terms of their art, architecture, and literature. The Anglo-Saxons were skilled artists and craftsmen, and they produced a number of beautiful works of art, including jewelry, metalwork, and illuminated manuscripts. They also built a number of impressive buildings, including churches, monasteries, and royal palaces. The Anglo-Saxons also produced a rich body of literature, including poems, epics, and historical accounts. The arrival of the Anglo-Saxons had a profound impact on British culture. They brought with them their own language, religion, art, architecture, and literature, which had a lasting impact on the development of British culture. Second is the Viking invasions and their impact on Anglo-Saxon society. The Viking invasions of Anglo-Saxon England began in the 8th century and lasted for over 200 years. The Vikings were a seafaring people from Scandinavia who raided and traded throughout Europe. They were skilled warriors and sailors, and they quickly became a major threat to Anglo-Saxon England. The Vikings attacked Anglo-Saxon monasteries and coastal towns, and they often captured and enslaved the local population. They also established a number of Viking kingdoms in England, including the Danelaw, which covered much of the north and east of the country. The Viking invasions had a profound impact on Anglo-Saxon society. They led to the decline of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, and they forced the Anglo-Saxons to adopt new military and defensive strategies. The Vikings also introduced new technologies and ideas to England, including the longship, the Danelaw, and the use of runes. The Viking invasions ended in the 11th century with the Norman conquest. However, their impact on Anglo-Saxon society was lasting. The Vikings helped to shape the development of English language, culture, and law. Do you know the Vikings, who invaded and settled in England during the Anglo-Saxon period, left a lasting impact on the English language? Many Old Norse words, such as berserk, ransack, and thorp, meaning village, are still used in modern English. Third, the development of Anglo-Saxon law and government. The Anglo-Saxons brought with them their own legal system when they migrated to Britain in the 5th century. This system was based on Germanic law, which was a system of customary law that was based on the principle of an eye for an eye. Anglo-Saxon law was administered by a system of local courts, and it was enforced by a system of fines and punishments. In the 7th century, the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms began to adopt a more centralized system of government. This was due in part to the threat posed by the Vikings, who were raiding and conquering parts of Britain. The kings of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms began to assert their authority over the local courts, and they began to codify the law. The most important legal code of the Anglo-Saxon period was the Dooms of Edgar, which was issued by King Edgar in the 10th century. The Dooms of Edgar codified the law of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, and it established a system of royal courts. The Dooms of Edgar also established a system of taxation, and it regulated the relationship between the king and the church. The Anglo-Saxon system of law and government was largely replaced by the Norman system after the Norman conquest in 1066. However, some elements of Anglo-Saxon law and government, such as the jury system, were retained by the Normans. Fourth, the rise of Christianity in Anglo-Saxon England. The rise of Christianity in Anglo-Saxon England was a gradual process that took place over several centuries. The first missionaries to arrive in England were sent by Pope Gregory the Great in 597 AD. They were led by Augustine of Canterbury, who was appointed the first Archbishop of Canterbury. Augustine and his missionaries faced a number of challenges in their efforts to convert the Anglo-Saxons to Christianity. The Anglo-Saxons were pagans, and they were reluctant to give up their traditional beliefs. However, Augustine and his missionaries were eventually successful, and by the end of the 7th century, most of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms had converted to Christianity. The conversion of the Anglo-Saxons to Christianity had a profound impact on English society. It led to the development of a new system of education, and it helped to unite the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms under a common religious identity. Christianity also played a major role in the development of English literature and art. The rise of Christianity in Anglo-Saxon England was a major turning point in the history of England. It helped to shape the development of English culture and society, and it continues to be a major influence on English life today. Here are some of the key factors that contributed to the rise of Christianity in Anglo-Saxon England. The efforts of missionaries from Rome and Ireland. The conversion of the Anglo-Saxon kings. The support of the Anglo-Saxon nobility. The spread of Christianity through education and literature. The appeal of Christianity's message of hope and salvation. The rise of Christianity in Anglo-Saxon England had a profound impact on the development of English society. It helped to unite the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms under a common religious identity, and it played a major role in the development of English culture and art. Christianity continues to be a major influence on English life today. Fifth, the flowering of Anglo-Saxon literature, poetry, and art. The flowering of Anglo-Saxon literature, poetry, and art took place during the 8th and 9th centuries. This was a time of great cultural and intellectual achievement for the Anglo-Saxons. They produced a rich body of literature, including poems, epics, and historical accounts. They also produced beautiful works of art, including jewelry, metalwork, and illuminated manuscripts. Some of the most famous Anglo-Saxon poems include Beowulf, The Battle of Maldon, and The Wanderer. These poems tell stories of war, heroism, and the supernatural. They are full of vivid imagery and memorable characters. The Anglo-Saxons also produced a number of important works of prose. The most famous Anglo-Saxon prose work is the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. The Chronicle is a historical record that tells the story of Britain from the 5th century to the 11th century. It is an invaluable source of information about Anglo-Saxon history. The Anglo-Saxons were also skilled artists and craftsmen. They produced a number of beautiful works of art, including jewelry, metalwork, and illuminated manuscripts. Their jewelry was often made of gold and silver, and it was decorated with intricate patterns. Their metalwork was also highly skilled, and they produced a variety of objects, including swords, helmets, and shields. Their illuminated manuscripts were decorated with beautiful illustrations, and they were often used to record religious texts. The flowering of Anglo-Saxon literature, poetry, and art was a time of great cultural and intellectual achievement for the Anglo-Saxons. They produced a rich body of work that continues to be enjoyed by people today. Do you know, Beowulf, an epic poem from the Anglo-Saxon period, is still widely read and studied today. It tells the story of a hero who fights monsters and dragons. The poem has influenced many modern works of fantasy, such as J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, and George R.R. Martin's A Song of Ice and Fire series. Moving ahead, taking about the style. The Anglo-Saxon period was a time of great artistic and literary achievement. The Anglo-Saxons produced a rich body of literature, including poems, epics, and religious works. They also produced a number of beautiful works of art, including jewelry, metalwork, and illuminated manuscripts. The Anglo-Saxon style is characterized by its simplicity and its focus on natural forms. The Anglo-Saxons often used geometric patterns and animal motifs in their art and literature. They also had a strong oral tradition, and their stories and poems were often passed down from generation to generation. The Anglo-Saxon period was a time of great creativity and innovation. The Anglo-Saxons made significant contributions to British culture, and their legacy continues to shape the culture of England today. That's all for today's video. We will continue the discussion on the next part. Till then, like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.